turn your back on me.
Is that a challenge?
You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
White folks are nosy. They have specials. Nosy specials. Why does a bee make honey? You ain't a bee. Why do you give a fuck?
Where's the kaboom? There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
If he dies, he dies.
Welcome to Thought Crimes, everybody. This is your man, Savage Solomon.
And this is your girl, Sincere Ignorance.
That's right, we back at it again. What's beef? No, better yet, what's free? We're going to be talking about the reworking of Biggie's classic What's Beef by Meek Mill, Rick Ross, and of course, Jay-Z with their version called What's Free. You know, starting off with this track, apparently that boy Rick Ross has some things to get off of his chest. It's a pretty large, hefty chest and stomach, but he did get some things off. One of the things that I did enjoy was his shots at one Tekashi 6ix9ine. One of the things he had highlighted was saying, look, I've been in the game for 10 years. Basically, I've been called everything else, but never on nobody's favorite. We got this little tie-dyed head boy come in, and he's being praised. So it looked like Rick Ross kind of felt some type of way about that, seeing where the game went. Sincere, what were your thoughts on some of the verses on that track?
Best verse hands down, Jay-Z to me. And I know people be like, oh, Jay-Z stand. Not really. You know, I'm one of the people that even think music-wise, albums, combination, you know, just all the catalogs combined that, you know, Kanye West has a better catalog, for example. But when it comes to lyrics, when it comes to subliminals, when it comes to uplifting, being avert, and talking about these issues, Jay-Z has really made himself top notch with this. And when he's talking about investments, when he's talking about ownership, when he's talking about gentrification, when he talks about what happened to Michael Jackson and Prince, also when you're a black people that are extremely gifted, we're not even talking about talented, you're extremely gifted, they put you against each other because if you come together, you'll be an unstoppable force. Unfortunately, Prince and Michael learned that towards the end of their life. And again, unfortunately, they wasn't able to execute what they were trying to execute with Jay-Z because of their untimely passing. And I think it's a lesson for a lot of people. You know, a lot of people bring up Big Pimpin' or things that they don't like about, you know, Jay-Z, which is fair to bring up, you know, certain things about people. But I think at this time and point in time of the game, you gotta understand when people are maturing. You know, Meek Mill, I think, is trying to figure out where he wants to go moving forward. I think this is the best track real quick off of the album. But when you're talking about 360 deals, when you're talking about not caring about the billboard, when you're talking about investing in yourself and investing in your community, where we have a lot of everyday people doing that right now. You have Jay Morrison, you have black people in tech, you have Afro Tech in Oakland. So you have a lot of black people who are pushing this narrative and doing it by action. And I think Jay-Z's verse basically coincides with that. You know, even him, you know, just bringing up the Constitution, you know, in the land of the free, where the blacks enslaved, 3/5 of a man. You know, I think these things are very important. The club, you know, joints are nice, but these are the things that people really need to think about. You know, we had a conversation, you know, people crying about President Obama, but a lot of the smart black people saw the policies that Obama actually put on the low tip that can actually help black people with gentrification. You know, when it comes to even people who aren't accredited being able to invest, which is why you see a lot of these platforms allowing regular everyday people to invest $300, $500 into companies and have some ownership within that company too in the early stages before they become public. So I really do think that this is a good trend, and I think Jay-Z, again, he had the hardest verse on there, although everybody else did really good as well.
Jay-Z's verse is a final closing marker between him and Kanye West's relationship. Even when Jay-Z opens up when he says no red hats, don't Michael and Prince me and Ye, it already happened. And Jay-Z, for the most part, seems to have acknowledged that at this point in time and at this juncture with both of their careers, the relationship for the most part publicly is irreparable. Now, what both of them may do behind the scenes, it's another story, but it seems like Jay-Z feels that Kanye West has gone too far down the rabbit hole or the Trump hole or basically the shithole to really say, look, man, I can stand next to you publicly. What I like about Jay-Z very much so is at the beginning of his bars, he gets straight to the point. He gets straight to the point. He opens up and he says, I'm 50% of Duce and it's debt free. 100% of Ace of Spades worth half of B. And he said, Rock Nation, half of that, that's my piece. So he's actually demonstrating in the final form of what ownership looks like, as opposed to the filibustering of what we saw with Kanye West. And when we say the filibustering, we mean more so having to do what we saw with him running over there with that red hat, standing on the lawn. The quote unquote Black MAGA hat outreach program was really a bunch of talk about getting off of the Democrat plantation, no real ownership, just telling people via a dirty turtleneck wearing Candace Owens, you need to get off the Democratic plantation. And we saw that on the other end of the spectrum with his former friend, i.e. Kanye West, that it was just a bunch of filibustering. Kanye West gave you a bunch of empty gestures, a bunch of hyperboles, a bunch of vagueness, and just in a few couple bars of this song, Jay-Z saying, look what I've done already. I'm actually living what I preach versus just preaching and nothing coming about it. But at the same time, Jay-Z also continues in classic fashion to take shots at the industry. And one of the things that I disagree with, a vocal, obviously, probably more so a minority set within the hip hop community, that Jay-Z has been on his woke shit. Just because a nigga don't cut his hair doesn't mean like he's on his woke shit. If you go back and you chronicle Jay-Z at the beginning of Reasonable Doubt, if you're talking about Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3, even if you're talking about Rock La Familia, even if you're talking about one of the more dustier albums that people did not like was Kingdom Come, when he returned from his hiatus, Jay-Z for the most part has always preached ownership. Now, in his business dealings, who he has chose to align himself with, there has been some criticisms, and some of them have been fair. When it came to the Barclays Center, some of the people are saying, hey man, look, certain people are getting uprooted in this situation and they're kind of using you like a mascot. You know, those things like that can be criticized about one Jay-Z, but overall in his career, even going back to the blueprint, for the most part, this verse here seems to be in classic fashion. And I think personally, I think this verse here it's almost like a nail in the coffin to the friendship, the once friendship between Kanye West and Jay-Z, because obviously Jay-Z had bigger plans. Kanye West was along the ride, but got sidetracked, and now he's in a completely different space. So this verse here was very strong. The song overall was strong. From Meek Mill, what I got from his verse is what I've seen in interviews with him. He seems to be at a crossroad. He had been a spokesperson against the prison industrial complex, yet a majority or a faction of his fans actually still want him to rap that gutter shit. Even on the album, you don't hear his heart is as much into the flashy braggadocious, I'm a drug dealer, fly nigga type talk. It seems more of the maturity mindset. You know, he talked about getting off the pills. He talked about he's not doing drugs anymore. And then Rick Ross, on the other hand, he seems to be taking shots at other people in the industry that he feels that is pretty much goofy, that have been criticizing him over the years. So overall, this is a very strong track, easily the most standout track off of the Meek Mill album. And moving forward from there, we'll see where it goes.
And, you know, everybody stayed on the theme, you know, of what does it mean to be free. They all talked about ownership, although like you stated too, there was a degree of differences within that as well that, you know, showcased their own uniqueness. And yes, it's official that Jay-Z and Kanye West relationship is over with. A lot of people, you know, was hyping up Kanye West more, but when Kanye West aligned himself with Candace Owens, who steals people's trademarks and property rights and ownership with their creativity, which is what Blexit is, you have turned in the wrong direction. When you're crying about Nike, when you're crying about Adidas, when you're crying about ownership instead of just executing, you have failed. And that's what Kanye West is, you know, and he's married to a family that are a bunch of culture vultures. Whether you like Jay-Z or not, he married within the culture. Beyonce is a part of the culture. He's a part of the culture. And Kanye West went out of the culture and brought vultures in. You know, he is the one who legitimized Kim Kardashian. And then also he brought Amber Rose into the culture further. I mean, I know she's been in the video circuit. She was in one of the videos even before she met Kanye, like some video with The Game and Chris Brown. But you see the difference in choice. You see the difference in ownership. And more so, Jay-Z uses his platform now to rap to call certain entities out. But his action is matching his rhetoric. And also, I think in 2020 hindsight, I think he probably does feel stupid with the Barclay situation. Like you said, everybody has every right to criticize him for that. I think everybody now, because at the time, people thought working with these companies, getting them into urban areas was a smart thing to do. Now, a lot of black people are realizing the best thing to do is build yourself and get black companies into these areas. So that is an L on Jay-Z. But I think right now people are understanding the right type of business model. And we've all have made mistakes. And a lot of black people out there can't say that at one time they didn't think with real estate and with business to work with these certain companies to bring them into the hood. A lot of people thought that was the right thing to do, but it wasn't. And I think a lot of people are seeing that now. We see that in Atlanta, where you have black people buying up real estate, where you have black people who are entrepreneurs creating their own Silicon Valley, doing their own thing, having their own Afro tech seminars. And I think this is going to be a really solid move for a lot of the people that Jay-Z is trying to talk to. And even for the guys and ladies who are listening to the Little Pumps, if you're listening to the Kodaks, if you're listening to the Tekashis, those who are teenagers, those who are in their early 20s, right now is the time to listen to wisdom. I understand you are partying. I understand some of you are popping pills. Not all of you, but some of y'all. I understand y'all in for the fuckery. But if you don't make the right moves right now, where you have that opportunity, you will regret it for the rest of your life. And you don't want to be that. You don't want to end up like Tekashi. You don't want to end up like a lot of these people that some of y'all may admire or mess with. The time is now to be productive, to have vision, to have imagination, to have creativity, to showcase your intelligence. You have to do it now before it's too late.
I think that's kind of like an undercurrent theme of this song as well. Even them referencing the Biggie song, like What's Beef? Like, as much praise as Biggie Smalls gets in death, one could say that he still died. And from certain times where I've researched that his financial order wasn't all that proper and he wasn't done justly, even at the hands of one Puff Daddy or P. Diddy Pop, Bad Boy Records. So for them to even switch it and say, instead of beef, let's talk about what's free. And speaking of the undercurrent theme of time, because all of them touched on it, Rick Ross opened it up 10 plus years in the game. Look what it's come to. You got a rainbow-haired clown running around, act like he's running the town. Now he's brought up on racketeering. And then Meek Mill was lamenting over time, dealing with the prison industrial complex, talking about being in and out of the system, being perceived as a hoodlum, and even taking on the characteristics of a hoodlum and having remorse and regret at this age where he stands now. And then we go to Jay-Z, who's had the heftiest verse out of all three of these guys, where he talked about when he was young, he used to praise the billboards. Now he looks at the billboards like, are you dumb? Like, and even him kind of taking shots at how people running around in the industry, going back to Tekashi, because one of the things he kept celebrating is, I got a Billboard top 10. I got another Billboard top 10. And then Jay-Z says, well, I don't have a billion streams. I got $1 billion. And saying we're talking about what's real life, not all of this inflated industry talk, because that's where most artists get lost in the sauce, is focusing on industry aesthetics, what it means to have your streams at 1 billion streams, when we know from evidence that have come out and insiders saying the streams aren't even properly paying the artists. You have artists like her, you had artists like Ella May who had complaints about streams, and even Drake to some degree has touched on it, saying we're not being paid what we should be being paid. So you're seeing all of that take place right now, and this is why Jay-Z's verse, the entire song itself is an education call for a lot of the people in the industry. And yes, and I do agree that a lot of the people who are running around right now, whether you're a Lil Baby, whether you're a Moneybags Yo, even if you are a Kevin Gates, or if you're a Kodak Black, if you're a Lil Pump, if you're a cross-eyed Lil Pump, if you're any of these guys, you should not be looking to basically just troll on the internet. Because as we go up under the hood of Tekashi, we find out that his business dealings are all over the place. They were basically raping that boy financially, but he was too busy being concerned with industry aesthetics. That's me, my visibility on social media, because that's what they tell you in the industry. Get visibility, get viral real estate online. But you should be focusing not so much on what the Kanye West and the Tekashis are doing for visibility, but listening to those people who have been experienced in the industry. Even to Jay-Z, when he talks about the ills and the mistakes he's made in business and in partnership, where he went wrong at, and certain things like that. They should be looking at those power players behind the scenes as well. And too many times we've had artists, especially now with social media, who are caught up in the landscape of social media, but you find out that they go broke in a year, or that when they got their little $300,000 sign-on bonus, that they signed away all of their publishing. You got little guys right now signing away all of their publishings for $150,000, and that's before tax kicks in. So again, it is very important to take into consideration of the time, the opportunity, the advantage, and the space and the privilege that you have to work with individually, that many of these guys online should be taking advantage of. And again, listening to, at the very least, what Jay-Z has to say. And to me, it's reasonable, sound advice.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather be a Jay-Z than a Kanye West. You know, the dude from Chicago called it us saying, you don't see the genius behind what Kanye West is doing. There is no genius behind it. If you need to lick Donald Trump's balls to think that you're going to get in some type of situation when Trump only has loyalty to himself, you are an idiot. You are an idiot. You're supposed to be curving out your own path. Curving out your own path. You don't have to submit to anybody to do that. And you're not even using the word submission in the right context either. There have been people who use the strength and the coy of submissiveness to gain power while not humiliating themselves. More so like someone would say like a con artist, or maybe a Splinter Cell, someone who goes in there kind of in a quiet background manner and then subverts all the power to themselves. That's different. But that's not what Kanye West is doing. And I'd rather a black man be able to stand up on his own shoulders and proudly say, I own this, or I own most of this. Me and my wife, we do this, than someone to be a buffoon like Kanye West is being. Whether people agree with it or not, I don't care. But this is my opinion, and I say whatever the fuck I want. Now, also moving forward, I guess one last thing I'll touch on too, and what Prince stated about really listening to the message is not just about Jay-Z. We know people directly who are doing amazing things, and we've been at events where we've seen people doing what they need to do. You know, all this old nigga shit for comedy is all good and laughs, and we're gonna keep producing some laughter, but in reality, no one gives a fuck about Billboard. You think Google, YouTube, people in tech, they care about Billboard? You're not even getting paid by being on the Billboard. Are you dumb? And a lot of you are dumb. And I'm saying this out of love. You need to grow the fuck up. No one cares about what's on the Billboard. No one cares about your club rappers who are going to be here for maybe even 3 years and gone, broke. Nobody care about that. That's all an illusion. That's all an illusion. In the reality, the people that you see that are more quiet, the people that you see what they're doing behind the scenes, for those who are paying attention, that's real power. That's real networking. And that's something that everybody needs to learn. You need to separate reality from fantasy. It's extremely important. Reality from fantasy. Because if you don't, you're going to be one of those people in that bread line. And you have to work with your community. There are communities that are becoming stronger, black communities that are becoming stronger because they're working together, urban farming, they're working in tech. Hell, people don't even know right now the highest paid person in gaming for tech, for robotics, is a black man. It's a black man. But y'all don't know that because you're too busy saying niggas are dumb. And I know some people will say, well, thought crimes, you know, y'all made jokes, Kodak and all that. That's us showing satire. when it comes to Kodak, and also parody. Because us parody showing you a mirror. That's why at the end of those goofy skits, those goofy parodies, we show you something like Build the Wall. That's our real mindset. The other stuff, again, pure comedy and parody to reflect the mirror for you guys and ladies.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing about it, but that's true comedy. True comedy indicates intelligence. It's observational. It points out what is going on. Comedy is the absurdity in society, and it makes people think. It's supposed to make people think. One other thing that I would like to add is that Jay-Z said something interesting when he talked about separating us when we have Prince and Michael's DNA. And I think that's a very strong line because, especially with black folks, and I'm talking to black folks, you know, I know we get a bunch of other folks that come on our page, whatever, but I am talking to black folks because historically that has been our plight, is the separation, especially when you're on your way to success or when you landed in success. It's not about the come up. It's when Negroes get into the success or they're right there at success door that you usually see things happen in a different manner. Stuff falls apart, beefs are developed. And when you think about it, it was more so the media that played up Michael and Prince against each other. Michael and Prince, these two androgynous looking black men who were superb musicians. They did it with all of them. They did it with Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey. They're always pitting the black entertainers against each other, whereas in white space, it's not so much about that. It's about, let's come to the AMAs together. Let's come to the Grammys together. They may have their minor skirmishes and disagreements, but you don't see publishings or publications intentionally going all out to say this one has a problem with them. The most we've seen, as long as I've been up and running, has been Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera, but we knew which artist was better than the other, but it wasn't something about ending each other's career. But in black space, it's always this whole thing about pitting these black talented individuals against each other. So when he said you have the DNA of Prince and Michael, and he said we as a collective, I believe all black people have that particular DNA. You just have to access it. You have to be able to access it, because when we activate what we need to activate, we do a lot of cultural changing and shifting things when it comes to this reality that we're in. And even if you're talking about, I believe it's Adam Levine, he even said, he says all of the musical innovations right now are happening out of hip hop. It's happening in hip hop. And of course, since he's a white boy, all the white publications were getting angry with him. But that's the whole thing about it. Black people have always been innovative. They've always been curators of the culture. They have always been the birthers of society. That's why when Jay-Z opens up and he says, you know, you're giving us pig guts and we turn it into something immaculate, but then you want to come back and try to reclaim it and gentrify it, when he's talking about the project being the new wave, because there was a period, and even now, ghetto life, Project Life is a fantasy voyage trip for a lot of people, particularly of the white persuasion. So I thought that was very interesting that Jay-Z said about Prince's DNA and Michael's DNA, which is what at the end of it all, in its essence, they've been trying to duplicate and what they have been after for so long. So for him, he's saying, look, man, you know, at the end of the day, me and Kanye West got separated. We saw it with 50 Cent and Floyd Mayweather when they had the opportunity. No longer now, but at the time when they both were very hot, viable income sources in the culture, they had the opportunity when they were coming together to form their own boxing agency. They had the opportunity to destroy and especially level Golden Boy production by Oscar De La Hoya, Oscar fishnet stocking wearer De La Hoya. So of course the media didn't want that, and then you have the insecurities of both 50 Cent and Mayweather. They couldn't get along. They were arguing over a fucking woman that neither one of them are fucking right now. And then you allowed the media to come in and they went in overhaul. They said, let's destroy it. Because I remember boxing commentators said, if Floyd Mayweather and 50 Cent take this off, they will take over the boxing industry because they have the culture behind them. And that's what I got off this track. Yeah, all three of these brothers, there's things they've done in life that I don't fucking agree with. Ross got his problems, Meek had his problems, and Jay had his problems. But at the same time, I smelled the culture when I heard these three niggas rap, as as opposed to where they wanted to give the culture. Remember now, they're trying to take the culture, Sin and I, we talked about this. They're trying to take the culture into the trap wigger swag. Remember now, the original wigger swag was the Funky Four, Marky Wahlberg shit and the early Slim Shady shit. Now they want to go into the trap wigger swag and the post-trap wigger swag. That's why you're getting the Tekashis. That's why you got this other one. What is this? Skinny Trippy from the Nine, another one. All of these little weird mixed up trailer trash white boys that are coming out with these tattoos. And Tekashi's white. He's Caucasian. You saw they marked him on paper when they transferred him. He's fucking white. All right. That's where they want to take the culture. And what I got from this track, what Sin and I got from this track is the culture breathing in this space. And that's what they were doing with Michael Jackson. That's what they were doing with Whitney Houston. That's what they were doing with Prince. They want to take the culture, the DNA, and they separate all of the black entertainers. The black entertainers, because of egoic reasons, they play right into it, and you don't get a chance to own the culture. So that's what I got from this track, was like an answer to all of this goofiness. And again, you know, you have black complicitors. Academics is one of them. He can cry all he want. He gonna have to take this L. Everybody that co-signed that Tekashi shit, you're a part of the problem too. Talking about, I think he got good music. Well, really, Casanova and Tekashi make the same fucking music. All right. But again, it's where they want to take the culture, and it is out of the hands of blacks. And that's something that even us as a culture, a lot of us are stating that we understand it. We don't see it in action. There are some of us who are working to get it in action, but not enough of us is really pushing for this, because again, too many of these people are allowed to breathe in the space. At the end of the day, you know, we saw what happened with Prince and Michael. We saw what happened with 50 Cent and Mayweather, where they could have destabled Golden Boy production. The Golden Boy management team was running around pretty much running the boxing industry, but them two Negroes were too egotistical to understand that. And then we seen it in music as well. We saw what happened with Jay Prince, Dame Dash, Suge Knight, and Irv Gotti. We saw it with Murder Inc. Yeah, you don't want to hear, they get some annoying personalities at Murder Inc., but when you look into what they were trying to do and what they did do, you see why they were a target. Again, the industry doesn't want this culture in black people's hands. That's why there's such a fight. That's why you see all of this shit going on right now, even in the hip hop commentary space. So yes, Sid and I, we are very serious about this. Yes, we joke. We're funny motherfuckers, but even in our comedy, we're making intellectual, astute observations about the reality of black folks as we see it right now, and the importance of continuing to move in a progressive direction.
And, you know, publications like Drama Period, you know, whether it's Elvis and Jerry, whether it's the Beatles, whether it's Kurt Cobain and Guns N' Roses, who were considered anti the glam party rock of the 80s. And there was a lot of beef with white people in the music industry that was published. But what I do agree with you with is different when it's in black space because of the magnitude of it. And let me explain. Yeah, you have people who beef in you know, whether Tyler Perry, Katy Perry, that's all, they blast it all through white media. But the difference is Katy Perry and the other chick, Taylor Swift, they're not a Beyonce. They're not a Whitney Houston. They don't have the culture to shift. When you shift culture, when you shift everything, the beef that you have or you not coming to your other black contemporary creates a greater loss than ever that could be even imagined than if Katy Perry and a Taylor Swift got along. It don't matter if they got along. They can't do shit anyway, even together, you know. So when they're beefing and everybody enjoying the tea, you know, it's nothing. It's nothing, right? But when you're talking about people like Michael, like Prince, people who generated billions of dollars. This is what we're trying to make people understand. Or were extremely innovative, like Rosetta Tharpe and Little Richard. We're talking about innovators and culture, people who shift culture on a dime that creates a ripple of billions upon billions of dollars. That is what we're talking about. And that is the difference between a 50 Cent and a Mayweather beefing and a Katy Perry and Taylor Swift beefing. That's the difference. And white people know it. That's why there's a little bit of a little spice to it. So yes, they do publish, because I know some people may bring up, yeah, of course, white entertainers beef with each other all the time. But those white entertainers, most of them, I'm not going to say all, because there have been few who can really shift things, but most of them do not have the charisma, the innovation, and the power like these black entertainers do. Because it comes from black culture anyway.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's the point that we're both are making. Prince and Michael and Whitney at the time, all of them, Teddy and all of them, they could have took all the spoons and forks out of white people's mouths. Diddy could have too if he would have been acting right at the time. They all could have taken Tony, the Martello, whatever the dude's name is, and all these other Italian execs, Jimmy, Iovine, and all of them. They all could have taken the spoon out of these men's mouth if they would just did what they were supposed to do together at that time. And that's the point we're making. And it's true. I don't care what white people come on here bitching and crying and all this other stuff. If Prince and Michael would have said F the industry and would have completely did their thing early on instead of late in their career, very late, I don't even know what we could say. Michael Jackson, whether you like him or not, is the biggest entertainer of all time. And even if you want to talk even pre-Michael and pre-Prince, we're talking about Stevie Wonder, Aretha Franklin. I mean, Josephine Baker, Hazel Scott, Cab Calloway, Duke Ellington, Chuck Berry, Lou Richard, Fats Domino. I mean, do you really want me to keep going on and on and on and on of these black men and black women? Even before you get to the apex of Prince and Michael and Whitney, you already had music that was circulating around the globe that was dominant. And this is what you have to think about. It doesn't just work in entertainment too, because I know people be like, working on stereotypes, oh yeah, it's just entertainment. I just told you guys that the highest paying gamer in robotics is a black man. It extends outside of entertainment as well. And if you're a very smart person, you understand people build off the past. You have women and men of all different ethnicities in mathematics, in ancient times, different things. Do you know that even when it comes to the new technology of right now, even when it's AI, people don't understand that still is an extension of the past, of the groundwork that people have done in science and mathematics in ancient time. Everything we do, we're building. Even the Wright brothers with the airplane, there was already prototypes of that already, even if you're talking about in Moorish kingdoms. That's why it's very important to study the past and the present, because they both are your future and imagination as well. A lot of these white companies, and Prince can attest for it as well, a lot of these white companies in tech or whatever type of platform or industry, a lot of them base their design, their innovation off of the past. Off of past technology that they're advancing. That's why we're saying we're making advancements off of things that have already been proto and started before us. And on that note, peace, everybody. You can, of course, subscribe to us on YouTube. You can also support us on Patreon, because we will be having a Patreon live stream today at 5 o'clock p.m. You can also follow us on Instagram, ThoughtCrimes1984, on Twitter at ThoughtCrimes, and also, again, Facebook, ThoughtCrimes. This is your girl, Sin, and we are out.
Yeah.
Dead in the middle of little did we know.
I'm serious about mine. I'm so sincere.
Now at last I have seen a judgment of Solomon.